The flashing red and blue lights sliced through the stillness of my front yard, sharp as a jab to the chest, glinting off the freshly installed aluminum flagpole standing tall in the middle of my lawn. The flag, a folded, unfurled piece of stitched history, snapped sharply in the breeze under the faint glow of dawn. I stood on the porch, coffee growing cold in my hand, trying to make sense of the scene as two squad cars pulled up to the curb. The neighborhood was quiet, but I could feel the eyes behind twitching blinds and parting curtains, watching the drama unfold. The first officer approached cautiously, his gaze flicking between me and the flag, while the second hung back, hands resting near his belt. "Sir," the first one said evenly, "we got a call about a possible code violation and community disturbance involving an unauthorized structure on private property. Are you the homeowner?" I nodded slowly. "That's my house. That's my flag. And that pole's bolted into reinforced concrete in a legally zoned spot on my lawn." His eyes drifted up to the flag as it waved, then back to me. "May I ask when you put it up?" 2 days ago, I said. "On the anniversary of my buddy's death. We served together in Afghanistan 2010. He didn't make it back. This flag was on my pack the day he died, saving my life. I promised I'd raise it someday in his honor. Yesterday was that day." Something flickered in the officer's face, understanding, maybe respect. But before he could reply, a shrill voice cut across the yard like a siren. "There it is. That's the one. That's the unauthorized structure I told you about." I didn't need to look to know it was her, Lydia, the self-appointed guardian of the HOA, suburban ruler armed with laminated rules and unsolicited opinions. She marched across the street in a VY-soaring tracksuit, clipboard waving like a battle flag, her stride stiff with righteous fury. "It violat section 14.3 of the HOA guidelines," she barked at the officers. "No permanent vertical installations over 6 feet without pre-approval from the Community Oversight Committee. It's an eyesore, a hazard, and it's ruining the street's visual symmetry." The first officer raised a hand. "Ma'am, please calm down. We're still gathering information." "You don't need to gather anything," Lydia snapped, stepping closer. "It's illegal. It needs to come down now. It's upsetting the neighborhood." The second officer spoke up, his tone steady. "Ma'am, do you have legal proof this property falls under HOA jurisdiction?" Lydia faltered for a split second. "Well, it's part of the neighborhood, isn't it? We have standards." "Yes," I said calmly, stepping off the porch. "Standards that don't apply here. I bought this place because it's one of the few on this block outside the HOA zone. Check the county records." I did. Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again, grasping for words. "But it affects the aesthetic harmony of the block." "So does your lighthouse-shaped mailbox, Lydia," I shot back, deadpan. One officer smirked but quickly hid it. "Let's stick to facts," the first said, trying to diffuse the tension. "From what we can tell, there's no immediate code violation. The homeowner says the pole's secure, within legal bounds, and not under HOA rules." Lydia's face turned a furious red. "You're telling me you're not going to do anything? He just gets to put up whatever he wants." "It's a flagpole, ma'am," the officer said, patience thinning. "Unless you've got evidence of illegal activity or property damage, there's nothing to enforce." "This is outrageous," she hissed. "This is a community, not a war memorial." I stepped forward, placing myself between her and the pole. "You're right. It's not a war memorial. But that flag flew over one. It flew on days I thought I wouldn't make it home. Now it flies for those who didn't." Lydia scoffed. "That doesn't mean you can ignore community standards." "No," I said, voice icy. "But it means I can honor the people who died, so you have the freedom to complain about it." The silence that followed was heavy, cutting through the air like a blade. The second officer nodded toward the pole. "It's a good flag. Looks like it belongs." "It does," I said quietly. Lydia spun on her heel and stormed off, her eyes blazing with defeat, but I knew she wasn't done. She tasted control and wasn't ready to let it go, even if it meant trying to tear down something bigger than her rules. As the police drove away, I stood alone under the rising sun, watching the flag ripple proudly. Lydia wasn't finished. But neither was I. That flag wasn't just clot, it was memory, sacrifice, and I'd be damned if anyone, HOA or not, was going to take it down. It started subtly. Lydia walking her terrier past my house 3, 4, sometimes 6 times a day, her gaze lingering too long on my yard, scanning like she was hunting for EVY denke. Then came the comments little jabs masked as friendly at VYC. Your grass is a quarter-inch over regulation height, she'd say, or that porch light has a bluish tint, some folks might find it disruptive. I'd nod, smile, and head inside, hoping she'd tire herself out. But Lydia didn't tire. She zeroed in. Over the next few weeks, her observations turned into inspections, her suggestions into demands, all under the pretense of protecting the neighborhood's character. I wasn't just being watched, I was being judged by a rulebook that didn't even apply to me, since my property wasn't in the HOA. But to Lydia, that was a minor detail, an obstacle to her VY shine of suburban perfection. Her boldness grew, showing up Union VY TED while I mowed the lawn, snapping photos from the sidewalk. Once even while VYing a laminated city ordinance she claimed I'd broken by setting my trash bins out a day early. She wasn't just enforcing rules, she was making them up, bending every inch of this street into her personal utopia where she was sheriff, judge, and queen, despite VYing no authority over me. When I reminded her firmly that my house wasn't under her jurisdiction, she blinked like I'd spoken gibberish and said, "Some duties go beyond paperwork," before walking off like she just quoted Lincoln. That's when I knew this wasn't just annoyance. It was obsession. It escalated fast. Notes taped to my door highlighted articles about pool safety with scribbled warnings like community health matters. Flyers about neighborhood standards slipped under my mat. Then came the Water Watch pamphlet distributed at night, cautioning residents about unverified aquatic structures and hazardous flagpole installations, a clear shot at me. Neighbors texted, some amused, some worried, asking if I'd seen Lydia's latest bulletin, or if I was really building a chemical weapon. I laughed it off, but deep down I knew she wasn't just after the flagpole. She was crafting a story, painting me as a reckless outsider who wouldn't bend to her will. To her, that made me dangerous. Then came the surveillance. Sidewalk monitoring wasn't enough, she wanted closer access. One afternoon, I caught her perched on a crate by my fence, phone zoomed in on my pool pump, muttering to herself. When I asked what she wanted, she didn't flinch, just said she was documenting inconsistencies for the HOA board, even though I wasn't part of it. Just because you're outside the boundary doesn't mean you're not part of the community, she snapped when I pointed that out. Rules didn't matter anymore, this was personal. So I installed cameras, 4 of them, full perimeter, motion triggered, with cloud backups. Within 3 days they caught her again, reaching over the fence with a ladle, scooping pool water into a jar like she was collecting EVY denke for a crime lab. When I confronted her, she claimed she was rescuing an algae-infected leaf. When I called it trespassing, she rolled her eyes and said, "If you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to worry about." That's when I decided I'd had enough. This wasn't quirky Anna Marie, it was harassment. A line had been crossed. And when I finally raised that flag, it wouldn't just be a tribute, it'd be a stand, a refusal to bow to someone who confused power with purpose. Lydia's final move came cloaked in formality. She showed up with 2 HOA board members, Marcia and Ellen, on a humid afternoon, dressed like they were selling condos, clutching folders as they announced a community standards RE-VYEW. When I asked who authorized it, Lydia said, "The committee," though Marcia and Ellen looked uneasy, like they knew this was shaky ground. "What authority do you have over my property?" I pressed. Ellen mumbled something about proximity to regulated lots, but Lydia stepped forward, undeterred. "You're not just breaking aesthetic relation, disrupting neighborhood harmony." I smiled, leaned against the doorframe, and said, "Maybe this neighborhood could use a little disruption." Then I shut the door, viewing them deflated on the porch. It wasn't over, but I was done playing defense. When someone shifts from nosy notes to sneaking samples and coordinated pressure, the only option left is to stand firm, brace for the fight, and let the flag fly, not just as a symbol, but as a warning: this home isn't yours to control. And this life won't bend to your approval.